sticky, honey glazed, hot smoked salmon. Yes, you can make this at home without special smoking equipment. I'm going to show you how. And not only that, we're going to make the most amazing prawn cocktail bao buns. And yep, I'm going to walk you through how we make those fluffy buns from scratch. Welcome to my homemade seafood feast. All right, so let's get started on the bao buns first of all. And I have to say, this is a very easy dough mixture to work with as long as you get all your quantities just right. So let's go through it. We've got some plain flour first of all. And to that I want to add my raising agents. So I've got some instant yeast. Now there are two types of yeast that you can get a hold of, dry yeast that is. There's instant and there's active. So the active will require you to bloom the yeast in a little bit of warm water to kind of get it started. Instant yeast, which is the one I'm using, can just go straight in the flour. So just be a little wary when you're buying your yeast. Now also some baking powder as well and some sugar. So give that a good mix. Just create a bit of a well in the center here. Okay, let's talk about flour for a few seconds here. So one of the questions I get asked all the time is, why are my steamed buns that I make at home a little bit yellow? They're not pure bright white like the ones in a restaurant. So if you want the really, really white bao buns, you're going to have to head down to your Asian grocer and find the special steamed bun flour. Sometimes it's called Hong Kong flour, sometimes it's called bao flour. It's usually got little pictures of steamed buns on it. That one is the one you want to give you the really white buns. But I find it's very often difficult to get a hold of, so I'm just happy using plain flour. It means that my buns aren't going to be bright white, but they still taste good and they're really fluffy. And now our wet ingredients. So I'm starting off with some warm water, and the warm temperature is going to help to get that yeast kind of going and active and alive and bubbling. So that's why we want the warm water. To that I'm going to add some vegetable oil and a little bit of milk. So a lot of you guys have mastered my recipe for bao buns. I know because you've written in and shown me and told me, which is really awesome. One of the things that you said though was that it was very difficult for some of you to get a hold of skim milk powder, which is in my original recipe. So what I've done for this one is test one out for you guys using milk instead of the milk powder. So it might be a little easier for you. Now pour that in. Just start mixing through the center here and then keep mixing. And once you kind of get to this stage, you want to get your hands dirty. Now I've got that mixture almost all together into one big ball. I'm going to tip that out onto my bench here. And this dough always starts out a little sticky, so I like to just dust with some flour and start kneading. Now a little bit of intuition here is needed. If the dough is sticking to the palm of your hand as this one is doing as I'm kneading it, I need a little bit more flour. So I'm going to dust that. And now I can feel that that dough is coming off my hands very easily. It's not sticking, so I'm just going to go for it. So you want to knead for about 5 or 10 minutes. Just kind of like relax into it. Have a think about all the wonderful people you're going to see over Christmas. All the not so wonderful people. There's always someone's second cousin that you don't like. Now once your dough is looking fairly smooth, and when you press down on it, it should bounce back. So that is looking nice and bouncy here. So I'm going to pop this into a bowl. Tea towel goes on top. And then you want to let that rise for about 90 minutes or until it's doubled in size. Now while our dough is doing its thing, let's get our cocktail sauce done. So cocktail sauce can mean many things to many different people depending on where you are. Mine obviously is from my childhood growing up in Australia with a little dash of Asian, if you like. So first of all, mayonnaise base for our Australian type of cocktail sauce. To that I want to add some ketchup. And then I always add a little spicy element. So for me, my coconut sriracha is the perfect thing to add in here, but any kind of chili sauce that you really love is great as well. It is also optional, you don't have to make it spicy. I think my Southeast Asian ancestors just rolled over in their graves then. I have to make it spicy, you don't have to make it spicy. And a little bit of Worcestershire sauce and some lime juice. Okay, now I always taste this to see if I need to do any little adjustments. Yum. That sauce just says to me, fresh prawns. And I can't eat fresh prawns without that sauce. Peas in a pod, these two. Now I always make a big batch of this to keep over Christmas because we're often eating seafood like prawns, salmon. Makes a great dipping sauce for any kind of like seafood spring roll even. It's a really handy thing to have. Oh, sandwiches, so many different things. And now let's finish off our buns. That smell of that beautiful proving yeast, such a nice kind of bread dough smell. So good, so comforting. All right, let's get our dough out onto our bench top. And now you want to give this another knead to kind of knock the air out of it. So give it an even smoother texture, this second knead. Now just roll it out into a cylinder and cut that in half. Now keep one half under the tea towel so it doesn't dry out. And now let's pay some attention to this other half. So I want to give it another little bit of a knead and then roll this one out into a nice little cylinder. Main thing here is to make sure it's even because I'm just trying to get some even pieces here. Cut that in half and then cut each of your pieces in half until you've got 8 little even blobs. Now I like to do this with a little bit of oil. I don't want to put any more flour on here because that's going to give us a kind of dry texture on the outside, and I want a nice shiny texture on the outside of our buns. So just some vegetable oil. I'm going to rub my hands first and now rub one little piece, sort of give it a spin on the countertop. And you're aiming for a nice, neat, smooth little ball. Oh, that shape is so satisfying. Okay, put that down onto a piece of baking paper and then set that aside while we do the rest. So usually bao buns are shaped so that they're kind of like a sandwich or a fold shape. We're going to make some mini burger bun style bao buns today. Oh, that's a lot of B's, isn't it? Anyway, so we're going to roll them into a round circle. Actually, it's kind of easier than trying to make the little sandwiches. Now you want to cover these guys up with a tea towel and just let them prove for another 30 minutes. Okay, so these guys have had 30 minutes. They have grown in size a little bit. Let's get them steaming. Put them into your steamer. Leave a fair bit of space because they will expand. Just pop that over some boiling water, lid on, and then we just have to wait 10-12 minutes until they're beautifully fluffy and big and light and very exciting. The big reveal, always my favorite part. Oh, just take a look at those cute little buns. Oh, that smooth texture, perfectly light and fluffy. Well, we'll see. I'll show you in a little bit. Let's take them off. And then let's have a look inside. Just look at how fluffy and light these are. Oh, perfection. So at this point, you can actually freeze these. They freeze really well, and then when you want to go and serve them, you just pop them back into the steamer, another 12 minutes, and then they're ready for you to go. So it's a great entertaining kind of style of bread to make because you can make it all in advance. Right, let's get to the assembly part now though. So I've got all my little bits and pieces here. For me, it's got to be iceberg lettuce because in a traditional prawn cocktail, that's what I'm looking for. I've got my spicy sauce, I've got some crispy shallots, prawns of course, and some coriander. Now take yourself a bun and slice open. Definitely need a serrated knife here because these guys are quite soft and fragile. Open that up. Now I'm all about structural integrity when it comes to building any kind of bun, burger, sandwich. Get quite pedantic about it. All right, a little bit of sauce first of all. It's going to kind of hold and glue everything together. Some lettuce. The lettuce for me is always on the bottom. A couple of prawns. Sprinkling of crispy shallots. These guys add such a great little oniony flavor, but also some crispy crunch as well. Really good little addition. A nice little sprig of coriander. Of course, if coriander's not your thing, you can leave that out, replace it with any other kind of Asian herb that you like. And then a little bit more sauce on your top bun because that also is going to hold everything together. Sandwich that on top. And there we go. Uber cute, so cute. I love these little guys. Okay, pop that onto a platter. Now you could do all of these up and serve them like this, or you can actually put your prawns out, all the little condiments out, and the buns out. People can help themselves. Totally up to you. And there you go, my little prawn cocktail bao buns. Let's just see how we've gone here. That bun is so light and fluffy, and that little hint of spiciness in that cocktail sauce, and that beautiful crunchy onion, and the lettuce, and the prawn, and everything. This really is great. So good. Now, don't go away because we're not finished with our little seafood extravaganza here. We're going to make some salmon. A beautiful, glossy, hot smoked salmon. It looks a little fancy, doesn't it? But I've got an easy way for you guys to make this one at home. A few little tips and tricks, a little bit of handiwork, and voila, you'll have an amazing salmon to share with family and friends. Now I want to do my smoking mix first. So we are going to do some good old home style smoking without any special equipment, with no massive big smoking machine or anything like that. We're going to improvise. So let's start off with a little bit of tea. So this is an Asian style smoking mix. I've just got some black tea here and some spices. So I've got some star anise, some cinnamon, and some Szechuan peppercorns. Now I want some brown sugar as well. I'm going to add in some raw rice as well. So the rice is going to kind of cut down on the amount of tea and sugar that's burning. I mean, I want a lovely smoky smell, but I don't want like an acrid, burnt flavor to my salmon. So the rice kind of helps to temper that a little bit. Now you just want to give that a good mix. Now let's go through how we make ourselves a little smoker, just a wok and a few other bits and pieces. Now you've got your wok here, and you want to start off with some foil, 2 layers of foil. Don't skip the 2 layers because you don't want any of this smoking mix getting stuck onto your wok. It won't come off. I know. Now you want to make a little kind of foil bowl at the bottom here. Pour in that smoking mix, spread that out, And now what you want to happen here is you want a rack that's going to sit on top of that little bundle of foil that we've made underneath. Now I have a cake rack here. Mine wasn't quite large enough. It kind of was sitting too deep in the wok, so I just kind of shoved some foil around the outside of it to make it a bit wider so that it sits nicely on top there. There you go. Now turn the heat on and just wait for little smoky tendrils to start appearing. So this method of smoking the salmon is inspired by Chinese style tea smoked duck. And what the smoke does is really bring you lots of little added kind of spicy and smoky flavors and aromas, and it just kind of makes everything a bit special. Now let's have a look at this beautiful piece of salmon here. I've gone for a center cut because I want the fillet to have a nice even thickness through the whole piece. All right, so just pop that onto some baking paper. And now that goes onto our rack. Now pop the lid on, and then you need about 15 minutes here for all of that spicy smoke to work its magic. So there are two types of smoked salmon generally, and that is the cold smoked salmon. That's generally what you would have on a bagel or on some avocado toast if you're in Australia. Or there's hot smoked salmon, which is big fillets of salmon that are smoked, so you've got kind of like a cooked salmon texture, but you've got a beautiful smoky flavor. Okay, so while that salmon's doing its thing, we're gonna make a couple of little extra bits and pieces. I need to make a little glaze here. So I'm gonna start off with some honey and some pineapple juice, some soy sauce, and a little dash of dark soy sauce. Now you just want to heat this up a few minutes until that honey is kind of melted and softened down and everything is beautifully mixed together. So while that's happening, I'm going to get some little pickled cucumbers done. This is a really quick pickle and it's kind of like a nice, refreshing, crunchy, tangy side to serve with your beautiful salmon. So just finely slice a cucumber. Pop that into a bowl. Now all we need here is some sugar, a dash of vinegar, and some salt. Now give that a really good mix, and they will totally be ready to go by the time our salmon is done. Now that glaze is looking good. I'm just going to pour that out and wait for our salmon. Okay, so let's have a look. Now already that salmon has such a beautiful color on it. We're going to improve things even more by adding our glaze. So generous brushing on top. Now I'm not too concerned about whether the salmon is cooked yet because I am going to put it under the grill, so it will finish off cooking in the oven. Now pop that under a really hot grill for 10 minutes or until you get a really lovely color on top. When you've got lots of people coming over, this is a great one to cook because you only have to worry about one big piece of salmon. You don't have to cook multiple small little bits and pieces and plate it all up. Everything just goes out and everyone can help themselves. Now, while the salmon's under the grill, I'm just going to finish off my cucumbers. Let's give them a really good squeeze. Got some dill and some fresh mint here. I just want to finely slice that. Sprinkle that on top. Just toss it through. Okay, now just have a look at this. What a beautiful color. Ah, such a treat to have this kind of salmon at home and to have made it yourself. Okay, carefully transfer that over onto a serving plate with our cucumber. final little bit of flourish here. Some finely chopped dill. A few little wedges of lemon. So there you go, glazed, hot smoked salmon, all done without a special smoker at home. I love when you can make do with what you've got. And let's just see how we've gone here. Look at the color of that. Wow, I love that beautiful dark color on the outside and then that wonderful just light pink through the center. Really is a work of art. Wow. That flavor is like nothing else. You won't even believe the amount of just that 15 minutes in that smoke, the amount of flavor that's gone through there. And you can kind of taste those aromatics like the star anise and the pepper and the cinnamon, and just leave such a beautiful smoky finish. Get myself a little pickled cucumber. Amazing, just amazing. So this one can be served warm out of the oven, or you can chill it down and serve it as like a cool summer salmon kind of dish. So a little seafood feast you can easily put together for people that you're having over this holiday season. My beautiful prawn cocktail bao buns, hot smoked homemade salmon. What a beautiful spread. Enjoy. I'm going to. Yum. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed that very Merry Christmas special. And the good news is that I've got more delicious holiday stuff to cook for you guys. So come back next Saturday and watch the next very Merry Christmas special episode. See you then.